Hello and welcome to another video review. This is Half-Life for PC and it was eventually ported to PS2. Now if you don't know what this is, then where have you been for the past 13 or so years? I mean, we're going on 14 years now, but the game was released in 1998. It was Valve's debut title. They had never released a game before. It was PC exclusive when it was released, and they eventually ported it to PS2. And it used the Quake 1 engine, heavily modified, so it became known as the Gold Source engine, the GOLD SRC engine. Not Source like in Half-Life 2. But it really just exploded. I mean, everybody thought maybe this was going to be a little bit too ambitious for a newbie studio to really get down, and it ended up just blowing everybody away. It still is a massive phenomenon to this day. I mean, Half-Life 2 made it even bigger than it already was, so they really did create their own, basically, worldwide phenomenon with this. But does that really translate into it actually being a great game? Well, with all this hype around it now, it's kind of hard to tell, right? So let's go ahead and get into it. Now, like I said, this is based on the Quake 1 engine, so they were extremely limited as to what they could do with the graphics capabilities at the time. Quake 2 had just come out the previous year, and it looked much, much better than this. The textures were really low res in this game, but what they did with the, and the modeling was really awful too. But we're talking early 3D era, so it's not like they really had a lot available to them at the time. But what they did with those extremely pathetic graphics capabilities is pretty astonishing. The amount of detail in the environments is just insane, especially for something from 1998. But I mean, there's tons of things around the environment that you can just whack and fall apart, like crates and stuff. You can knock crates apart. There's lots of things going on in the environment. There's like sparks flying all over the place. There's all sorts of interesting things that really lend to this atmosphere of the game. It's got that very... It's a cross between just like a sci-fi action kind of thing as well as a horror thing, and it really blends those two elements very, very well. So what ends up happening is you go through this game, and the graphics, you don't really even notice that the graphics themselves are low quality. It's just that they all work so well together to bring you this horrific yet still action-packed atmosphere that you don't really end up caring about the graphics altogether. And then there's the sound design, which is kind of all over the place, really. I mean, the music is basically a techno score, techno-electronica, whatever you want to call it. And it fits the game really, really well. There's a lot of kind of dark music as well as some action-packed music for when you're blasting your way through things. So it really does lend a lot of variety to the gameplay. And then you go to the sound effects themselves, which are all very nice for the time. Now, granted, the sound quality itself is pretty low, but the sound effects themselves are pretty well done. I mean, the guns sound fairly beefy and concussive just enough. Explosions sound nice. I mean, all that sounds good. Aliens definitely sound like aliens. But then you have the voice acting. And the voice acting is a weird thing, because it's become kind of iconic, like Dr. Kleiner. Well, he's not Dr. Kleiner in this particular game. There's a lot of them that look like him. But, Gordon, I'm falling at 9.8 meters per second. I mean, they talk like that. And the enemy soldiers are pretty much indecipherable. They just kind of garble everything through their radios. It's really weird sounding. And it's hard on your ears, too. But, really, the voice acting just lends to it's kind of like a B-movie almost, in terms of the voice acting. But you don't really notice it all that much. In fact, you kind of get into the vibe, and it's really just all of it blends together to lend to the atmosphere of that sci-fi horror storyline kind of thing. But they did take it much more seriously in Half-Life 2, and so I think fans of Half-Life 2 will find that Half-Life 1's voice acting is a little bit odd compared to what you get in Half-Life 2, which is actually very high-quality voice acting. But of course, it wasn't the presentation that kept people coming back to this game and saying this game is amazing. It was actually the storytelling. It wasn't necessarily the storyline, but it was the storytelling, which is very unique to Valve. They tell you very little in the storyline, actually. You go through the game, and you just become part of the action. You're just kind of swept up in the whole thing. And it was really unique at the time because the way it starts out is you're just standing on your train standing on a tram going to work. I mean, you have no indication that there's going to be any high-intensity first-person shooter action until basically all hell breaks loose. And, well, I mean, of course, unless you've looked at the box and saw the M rating and all that stuff. But, anyway, that kind of thing had never really been done before. Up until then, all we'd had was the Doom and Quake style, where you'd basically just jump around blasting things to bits. And that was about it. I mean, it was all about the high-intensity action. And while this game does have high-intensity action, it really focuses more on you getting out of there. I mean, the whole point of the game is to escape Black Mesa. And at least that's the objective that you're given. And you really start to really get into it because, I mean, you're just an MIT scientist that you wouldn't expect to become the ultimate badass of ultimate badassery. Up there with the likes of Doom Guy and Duke Nukem. I mean, you wouldn't expect that with some MIT physics scientist person. It's just highly unlikely. I mean, you wouldn't expect that kind of thing. But that kind of became the phenomenon. I mean, you really just don't expect it, but then it happens. And that's kind of what Valve is known for. They kind of they really put like M. Night Shyamalan to shame with their plot twists, because all of their twists are actually impactful, I guess is the proper term. I don't know. But because when these twists happen, you're just like, oh, snap. It's not like in an M. Night Shyamalan movie where it's just kind of like, yeah, I saw that coming from a mile away. No, it happens, and you're just like, whoa, what just happened? And that's a really unique style. It's really kind of hard to pull that off. And, I mean, even now, after Half-Life 2 and after the episodes, we're still kept in the dark. We still don't really know what happened at Black Mesa. I mean, we still don't really know what happened leading up to Black Mesa. Well, I mean, leading up to Half-Life 2, sorry. We know that the Combine took over, but that's about it. I mean, they keep so much in the dark, and it leaves our imaginations going. It's like, what is actually going on? What is with this storyline? Who is this person? Who is the G-Man? Who is he? What is his name? We don't even know what his name is. We just gave him the name G-Man because we can. And stuff like that. I mean, it really does leave you speculating, and that's a great thing for a game like this. But there is a major problem with this. The gameplay. And it's not that the gameplay is bad. It's not. It's actually very good gameplay. It's that it does get tiresome. And that's because it is the standard style of first-person shooter of basically that era. You basically run around, you blast things, and then you solve puzzles. And you do this the entire game. And some of these puzzles are pretty clever, actually. So you end up sitting there scratching your head going, wait, where am I supposed to go now? What am I doing? And that's the problem with it. It is kind of hard to navigate sometimes. And that really does discourage me from playing it. It got pretty hard to navigate at times after trying to complete puzzles and such. I mean, it wasn't actually that the gameplay really bothered me. It's just that I lost interest in it after a while. And that was because some of these moments where you get lost happen between the story bits, where you're just kind of like, hey, the story is interesting. And that really does lend to a problem with the game, because the story is really what keeps you going. The storytelling is really what drives the game. It's not that the action's bad, it's just that it really doesn't elevate the game very much. Now, like I said, it's not bad. I mean, I still like this game quite a lot. It's just that I don't like it like the phenomena dictates I should. I'm not going to sit here and just gush over how amazing Half-Life is, because while it is very good, and while I can appreciate it for being revolutionary at the time, I really just don't like playing it all that much. I don't know why. It's just something about it rubs me the wrong way. I don't really know what. I can't put my finger on it. But it is a game that's well worth checking out for anyone. I mean anyone. You don't even have to be a first-person shooter fan to check this out and like it. I mean, because I mean, I've been a first-person shooter fan for a long time, but I mean, friends of mine who've never actually liked first-person shooters play Half-Life, and suddenly they're into them. I mean, that's the kind of impact this game has. But all in all, I don't know what it is about Half-Life that rubs me the wrong way, but I just don't like playing it as much as the most people seem to. And that doesn't mean it's a bad game. It's still a great game. It's a phenomenal game. It's extremely well designed. It's just that certain parts of it make me lose interest, and I don't really understand why. So, what you should take away from this, I suppose, is that Half-Life is a great game, but you do have to kind of be patient with it. If you do get lost, then it does become a little bit difficult to really navigate where you're supposed to go, because sometimes it can be a little bit obscure. But it's well worth checking out for anyone, especially first-person shooter fans. Especially if you've played Half-Life 2 and you haven't played Half-Life 1, then you definitely need to play Half-Life 1. So overall, I highly recommend it, but I still have certain problems with it that I can't really understand. So, anyway, thanks for watching.